Hello, and a very warm welcome to this episode. And today we're going to talk about visibility gaps, as this is something that I'm seeing coming up quite a lot recently in my conversations. So, there are two kinds of conversations that I end up having around visibility. The first one is with people who are already on their way with their career development plans. They are aiming for promotion. They're doing great work. They're high performing, very driven, very ambitious. And yet somehow they're seeing others getting promoted ahead of them. And they know that they're great at what they do, but they also know that's the thing that's landing for them when I have the conversation is that they're not always fully communicating. They're not always fully sharing all the great work that they do. So maybe that is you. Maybe you recognize that. The other kind of person that I'm meeting and having quite a lot of conversations with as well recently are what I call people who are strategically very key, very important in the way they contribute, but again, they're not necessarily being fully seen in that way. So there might be people who are supporting, advising, giving great strategic overview. They might be connecting the dots, particularly for senior directors and managers, maybe even the board, but they're not necessarily acknowledged in that way. So they operate at that level, but they sometimes hesitate to express fully their views or their ideas. And so what happens is they're not fully seen at the level that they're already operating at. So maybe this is somebody or this kind of person that I'm meeting is something that you recognize as well in yourself. Both of these types of people that I'm meeting and having these conversations around visibility mean that often things are holding back, that they're not able to really fully land either the perception, the reputation that they want to aim for. And certainly in the case of the first person, not able to really get the promotion that they're going for. This is why I'm talking quite a bit about this idea of visibility. But before visibility comes positioning and really understanding how you share your value, talk about the impact you have in your role. And this was a theme that I focused on and spoke about at a recent event for the Chief of Staff Association. This is a global group, a network of people all operating in chief of staff roles, so very senior roles, and in quite different sectors and quite different size of organization. And what they recognized and why I came in to do this talk was that people weren't always very clear about the role that they do. People within an organization didn't really always fully understand how much value they could bring. And that was exactly what I spoke to: the positioning, the impact, and the visibility. So, why does this come about? Well, as I say, I mentioned the kinds of people that I meet, the kinds of conversations that I have. And I particularly notice that these dynamics are really prevalent right now. And I think the kinds of things that hold people back is that they worry about selling themselves. They worry about just creating spin. And they feel like they should be judged by the work that they do, that people should be able to see what they do and recognize their value from that. There is a reality, though, which is particularly in larger teams and organizations, for you to be perceived in that way, for you to achieve your next career steps, for example, like promotions, you have to make it visible for other people. You have to intentionally put it out there so people recognize it, and so that it builds your reputation, so that it doesn't matter whether you're in the room or outside it. People know what you stand for, what you do, how you change things within the team and the organization. For the high achiever, as I talked about in the first part of today, this kind of person is already delivering at such a high level. In fact, I'm working with a number of high achievers right now, and they don't need to do any more. They don't need to be delivering any more things or at a higher level. They're already there. Actually, what is much more important is recognizing who the key people are for them to be seen by, and then intentionally engaging and communicating with them. And I'm going to talk about a framework in a minute that's going to help you with that, particularly if that's your challenge. But this is very much what I call the promotion visibility gap, not being seen at the level that you are delivering, not performing even harder, but recognizing this is a positioning question. The other person is what I call an underestimated strategic operator. Again, I'm working with a couple of these at the moment as well. And it's deeply frustrating because you know that you have lots of value to give. You know that you're able to connect the dots and see things other people don't. But people sometimes see you as more of the support function. Perhaps they see you as the behind the scenes person to make things happen. But in reality, you are probably quite strategic. You probably have amazing ideas, but there is this concern. Am I able to fully express them in the moment? Will people listen to me? Will people judge me if I start trying to share it? So, different roles, but actually, interestingly, the same sort of challenge, recognizing for both that, and if this is you, you do great work, but maybe it's just not fully recognized. And the decision is that you've got to make it happen. It isn't necessarily about waiting for others to recognize it. It's about you taking the actions to make it visible, to make it seen, to build your own reputation. And that does require a certain amount of self commitment, a certain amount of letting go, perhaps, of some of the things that get in the way. And I will talk to those in a minute because those can stop us in our tracks. It's also recognizing that you're already capable, you already probably have the experience, and that you're maybe even doing the work already. So it is about that decision to commit to yourself, to make it happen. And it is a decision that you're going to go out there, no matter how uncomfortable at times it might feel, so that others recognize it too. This is what I want from you, going from lack of visibility to really strategic visibility, strategic influence and relationships that are going to elevate you, that are going to get you seen in the way that you're already operating and get you publicly acknowledged for that. Let's be clear, whether that's a promotion or whether it's the way that you are joining the seat at the table, that leadership table. So let's now get very practical. How do we do this? I'm going to break this down into 3 key areas, which I'd like to talk to you about. The first point, the first area is choosing to position yourself. Now, I've already mentioned this is not about selling yourself. And I'm really passionate about talking about this topic because so often people don't like this idea. If I talk to them about it, they might roll their eyes or perhaps go, well, I don't really believe in that personal branding. I just need to do a good job. But this is the reality. I think it's the reality of the job market today. I think it's the reality of many global organizations today that I work with. And I see it with the individuals that I support and help, who are often very good, except that they're not stepping into this visibility. And I often use a quote when I'm talking about this topic, which I think is a really relevant one, which talks about this idea of you are a brand whether you like it or not. And I think that's quite a powerful idea because even if we reject the idea of being a personal brand or having a personal brand, others, if you don't decide it for yourself and cultivate it, others will decide it for you. They will make decisions on their perceptions and they will decide what you're about. So this is about really recognizing we have to intentionally choose it. We have to choose to position ourselves and understand how we want people to talk about us by sharing with them what our impact is. So we need to articulate what we do. So a simple question, a simple activity that you can do now is ask yourself, how do you explain what you do in 5 words or less? It sounds like such a simple activity, but in reality, it is challenging. It is really tough to think about how do you express it in a way that makes sense, that lands it. So this is the first section, choosing to position yourself. From there, in the framework, let's talk about communicating your value. And this requires real clarity. And you might need to go away and reflect on some of the questions I'm about to ask you. But it really is about trying to help you understand what your unique positioning is about compared to others. So in my previous career, when I was in brand marketing, we often talked about the positioning. We often talked about how this brand was that we were working on was going to be different from the competitors around them. I think when it comes to personal branding, it's not so much competitive situations, but it's very much understanding how you do things differently as well. So here are the questions I would love for you to reflect on. And, if those immediate answers don't come to mind, come back to this or pause it right now and maybe go to a different space and just reflect on each of these questions in turn. So the first question is what do you do? And we've already talked about the role, but what is it you do more broadly and why does it matter? Being able to express why it matters to the team, to the organization, to if clients and customers, if that's who you're working with, or generally more broadly, whoever you're delivering your work for, I think that's a really important question to ask. Why does it matter? The next question is, how do you do it? What is your unique way of doing things? And that might include things like your strengths, your skills. It could include your experiences that make you unique in the way that you do things. But having that clarity, knowing how you do it differently from others, again, is really important. And the third question, which I think is a really nice one, is what changes because of you? What is the transformation, change, difference that you're making? How is it you're making a difference in your workplace, in your team, for your ultimate customers, whether there's internal or external? I think this is all these combination of questions is really about recognizing you're not just doing work, you're changing something by the work you do. And being able to articulate that, being able to share those outcomes is an important part of this positioning and visibility work. So those first two sections, those first two parts, choosing to position yourself and then having the clarity to communicate your value, these are more self-reflection areas to work on. The third area then is making it external. And this is the visibility strategies, having the confidence to really share what you have defined so far, knowing that you have the right, the opportunity to make this clear to others. And so that requires you really thinking about, in my book, I talk about the visibility pyramid, but starting at the sort of base level, really thinking about who needs to see more of you. Visibility doesn't sit in isolation, in a vacuum. You need to know who is influential. If you are that person who's going for a promotion, who's a high achiever, then those are going to be talent decision makers, key people who are either going to advocate you, endorse you, or maybe they are the people who ultimately are going to make that decision about whether you get the promotion this time or not. So being strategic in your visibility in relationship building is key there. For the person who is listening to this, who is maybe very strategic, very good at what they do, but perhaps not seen in that way, your challenge is really identifying those key senior people who need to understand the value that you bring, what you're changing because you're in your role. This could be senior directors, it could be the board, for example. But ultimately, it's those people who are looking at your reputation and thinking about what it is that you deliver. So that's the first step of this pyramid. What comes next, once you know who you're influencing, who is important to get in front of with your outcomes, your impact, is really considering how you're going to engage them. And that includes really reflecting on, what's motivating to them? What are they interested in? What are their expectations of you? And how do you really show that you're delivering beyond those expectations? What is it and how is it they like to communicate with you? Having this idea of an engagement strategy, I think, is very powerful. And then you make it very granular. You break it down and think about what the communication plan might look like. And that could include, for example, thinking about those formal opportunities to share the impact of and outcomes of your work, which could be such as at review stages or performance reviews, or possibly there might be certain moments where it's appropriate for you to share your wins and your progress. Those could be more formal moments. But then there are informal moments as well. In the unstructured conversations, it could be in certain touch points like networks or community interest or special interest groups within your organization, if they exist. It could be about really understanding where you might have the opportunity to have more exposure to those people in a more informal environment so they can get to know you, that you can talk more informally about what it is you do. So really consider, from the visibility strategy point of view, who it is you're talking to, the engagement, how do you engage them, and then the actual communication plan. Because ultimately, visibility isn't about the self-promotion. Visibility is very much about making clear what you already do. It's not doing more. It's just bring it into the vision of those who need to see it. Now, I want to acknowledge at this point that I've made this and broken this down into a very simple 3-part approach. But there is a reality, which is, for some of you listening to this is quite emotional. Actually, there is a genuine fear, perhaps, of being seen, of being visible. Perhaps you've had bad experiences in the past, or it can be locked up in other experiences that you've had as part of your growing up, part of your education. And there might be very genuine reasons why it is tough for you to step into more visibility, that you fear judgment or fear what others will say about you. But here is a moment that I want to, although acknowledge, I also want to offer support, which is, I see this too. I see this with the individuals that I help, people who have genuine fears of that visibility, but have found the ways, as we've worked together, to look at the beliefs systems that sit behind that, and then to rewire them, to really think about how to approach it differently so that they feel able to move themselves forward and be seen in the right places to build the reputation that they want to build. So there is a lack of visibility sometimes for those reasons, and I absolutely see them and acknowledge them. But I also don't want you to stay stuck. I want you to know it is absolutely possible for you as well to bring more visibility to the great work that you're doing already. So, wrapping this all up, I want to make it very practical and focused and easy for you. If you're going to take away 3 ideas from today, Whether you are the person who is a high achiever going for promotion, or you are a strategic operator, fantastic at what you're doing, but slightly underestimated, undervalued for what you bring. I think it comes down to just 3 key actions and areas that I recommend for you. The first of these is to define your positioning. That means choosing it, claiming it, and cultivating it. Really understanding that positioning is key if you want to achieve your career goals. So understand what is it you do and what is it you want to be known for. The second part of this is translating your impact. Make what you do absolutely crystal clear to the people who matter. Make sure that you're very clear in your mind how you change things for the better internally and externally, and make that expressed, make it something that is communicated. And then finally, the third part, make it visible. This is often, I know, an area where people get stuck, where they fear. But ultimately, this is just about making something that you're already doing come to the forefront, moving from the background to the front of the stage, understanding that it is already in play. It's just making sure that the key people know it. Ultimately, this is about stepping also into a much more of a leadership identity, recognizing that leading yourself, choosing your positioning, the visibility strategies are ultimately also about stepping into another level of leadership, deepening the way that you're showing up and acting as a leader. This is very much work that takes time, and sometimes it requires more than just listening to a podcast. So, what I do hope from today's episode is that it's created some fresh thoughts and perspectives on the topic. But in addition, I recognize that for some of you, you may get stuck on some of these questions, or maybe it is about the whole visibility mindset that's holding you back. So I just want to acknowledge that and recognize that. And if this is a space where you feel like you could do with some more help to really get your positioning clear, or alternatively, to really start communicating your impact and making that visible to the key people in your organization, then I would love to help. An easy step to do that is to buy a copy of my book, Become a Global Leader. And in there is a whole chapter dedicated to this topic. And it goes into much more detail around the visibility pyramid. Alternatively, you might really appreciate some focused support on this, as I do for my other clients today, helping them to achieve their career goals by really understanding how to communicate their positioning, impact, and designing their specific visibility strategies that are going to work for them. This is the work I do, I love. So if this is something I can help you with, 2 ideas for you. The first one is I'm still leading some leadership breakfasts. The next one is coming up very shortly on the 10th of June. Or alternatively, maybe you would appreciate my support one-to-one, wherever you're based around the world. If that's the case, again, I would love to talk to you. For any of these or to get more of my resources, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can message me over there on my personal profile, Victoria Reynoldson, and I'd love to understand what's going on for you and how we can help you move through this visibility gap and really start to achieve what you are really destined to achieve, whether that's your next promotion or being seen at the level you're already operating at. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening today. It's great to see you and hear and be with you again today, and very much look forward to seeing you very soon on the podcast.